I bet that if you want to understand your dog better, their needs, what they are going through, you heard something along the lines of you're projecting, you're humanizing your dog, and so on, at least once. That's why in today's video, I will be talking about if trying to understand your dog, their needs, their behavior is really the villain some would like you to believe. I'm Eva. I'm canine behavior consultant that always felt uncomfortable with traditional training approaches. That's why my work is based on meeting dogs' needs and helping people understand them better. Please subscribe to my channel if this is something that you have been looking for. I've been thinking about this scary word that no one wants to hear it in regard to themselves, projection, because it implies that we are not seeing the individual on the other side because we only see ourselves, our experiences, our feelings. And I think that's the worst thing that someone who really wants to understand another individual better can hear about themselves. And I'm not saying that we can get it wrong, not at all, because we are not only trying to understand another individual, but we are trying to understand a completely different species. I believe that when we are accused of projecting, we should flip the question of who is truly projecting back to the person originally stating this. Is it someone who wants to understand their dog or someone who wants them to engage in things that have nothing to do with who dogs are as a species based on their beliefs what dogs should be like? For example, insisting that the dog sits every time before they have a meal or before they cross a street is not something that dogs would do on their own ever, but it is something that we humans see as polite, as the right thing to do, however you want to call it. Our view of dogs, of other animals, of other humans also is strongly shaped by who we are, a combination of our culture, the society we live in, our life experiences, and so on. It is very important to be aware of this because we humans can only think like humans. And this means that it is impossible not to make mistakes when we try to better understand other species because the framework within which we think and understand others is limited by who we are as individuals and as a species. I often give my clients examples so they can more easily relate to what their dog is going through. For example, if we have a dog who is afraid of something, that fear might be irrational to the outside observer, the guardian, but can we better understand that fear and what seems like an exaggerated response if we think about how we react to things that we are afraid of? For people who aren't afraid of spiders, screaming, crying, running away from a tiny spider seems completely irrational and over the top. But for someone who is afraid of spiders, this is a perfectly understandable response that is triggered before they can even think that this tiny creature will not hurt them. I'm, of course, talking about non-venomous spiders here, to be clear. But this way of thinking about dogs or any animal for that matter is still mostly frowned upon. And if the person on the other side is more of the sciencey type, they will accuse you of anthropomorphism, which is defined as attributing human characteristic to animals. I want to point out a very important thing that I think is at the heart of this. Animals are sentient beings capable of complex cognitive processes. And we have research to support that, which is actually quite sad that we need research to justify why we should treat animals kindly. We are so quick to point out that we are the most evolved species, yet caregivers still have to defend why they have a respectful and loving relationship with their dog. The truth behind why the society in general is still so against treating the dog or any other animal with the same respect or kindness we would other humans is at least in some part connected to the fact that with this kind of behavior, we are challenging carefully drawn boundaries between humans and animals. In doing so, human superiority is called into question because we shift animals from objects to subjects. And that leads to some very uncomfortable questions, such as if animals feel similarly to humans, how can we justify our current treatment of them? The boundary of what makes humans superior and unique keeps being pushed higher and higher as traits that were once thought to separate us from animals are also found in the animal world. Octopuses use tools, wasps recognize faces, orcas cooperate when hunting, orangutans tease each other, ravens can exercise self-control, dolphins call each other by name, and so on, with every day there is basically a new discovery along those lines. And the more scientists study the animals and their behavior, the more they discover that we are much more alike than we might think. But of course, there is also a downside on relying too heavily on ourselves as a reference point, because animals are capable of many things humans can only dream about. Bats use echolocation. Birds use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. Mosquitoes can see infrared light, and so on and so on. And if we focus too much on what we are capable of, we may overlook the way other animals perceive, sense, and experience the world. And this can result in misunderstandings of the real needs, motivations, emotions behind the behavior of our dogs. And in some cases, these misunderstandings can lead to serious conflict between us and animals, or in this case, our dogs. For example, a dog wagging its tail is happy. Not true all the time. Or a dog showing their belly wants a belly rub. Also not necessarily true. Trying to look from the dog's perspective brings so many wonderful things, such as promoting their welfare, greater awareness of pain and suffering, and more humane and caring treatment. On the other hand, if it's not used critically and used with an understanding of who dogs are as a species, it can cause a lot of harm. And to minimize this possibility, I think it's crucial that we combine that empathy, that knowledge that they are sentient beings with their wants and needs, with educating ourselves about who dogs are, what their needs are, how those needs can be met. And at the same time, we must accept that we will never know as much about dogs as dogs know about dogs. In its own way, this is liberating because it means you'll never have all the answers. And that's why it's important to allow dogs to guide us. The most and best that we can do is listen and learn. And for the end, I'd like to share a finding from a study that will reassure all guardians that have been accused of spoiling, cuddling, or ruining their dog by being kind and gentle. This study showed that dogs whose caregivers share their bed with them, celebrate their birthdays, share food with them, and spoil them in similar ways do not show more problematic behavior than dogs who do not receive such care. In fact, they found that dogs who are spoiled actually had fewer behavior problems. Empathy, learning about who dogs are as a species and who our dog is as an individual is not projection. In my opinion, it's the only way we can ensure their needs are met and that they live the happiest, most fulfilling life possible. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next video. And if you have any wishes for further topics, let me know and I will gladly include them on my channel. Bye.